Hey guys, guess what? In this episode, I'm going to be analyzing the hurricane schedule. So, yeah, welcome back. And yes, in this episode, I will be going over the hurricane schedule. It's going to be the last part of this episode. And just a few things I want to get to, obviously, with the podcast. One, great partnership with SeatGeek. So you can use $20 off of your first purchase if you use promo code Caniac Report. All one word. It's a great deal to use if you're trying to take some money off of tickets that you're trying to get for a local venue near you, whether it's Lenovo. Um, I know one of my favorite comedians, Nate Bargatze. He performed at Lenovo recently, so I know it's probably too late to get tickets for that since it's already passed. But if you did, that would have been awesome. So another thing too I do want to talk about is that I will be having a bit of a Q&A. That'll be coming out a week from this episode being released. So submit questions, DM me. My email is also in the description in both YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So feel free to ask questions about what the Hurricanes have done this offseason, or if you even want to make statements, I will put them out there on the episode too. I'll also probably be posting that too on our social media handles like Instagram, X, TikTok, all that type of stuff. So another thing too is if you are watching this episode on YouTube, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And if you're listening to us on Apple or Spotify, please give us a rating and a review. It really does help me out. And one last thing I do want to get to before I cover the news since our last episode is that in the month of August, it is usually the deadest month when it comes to news around the league, news around the Hurricanes. And because of that, I have, in fact, I already pre recorded quite a few episodes. Most of these episodes are, I would say, pretty much all of them for the month of August will not contain any news. Now, if something big does happen, like with the Hurricane specifically, it would have to happen with the Hurricane specifically. Like if something big happened, I'd probably put like a mini 10-minute episode out there along with the schedule episode that you're already getting. But it's just a nice way for me to get a break from the podcast and you guys still getting episodes. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for both you and I, and that's actually reference to a TV show that I grew up watching too. So if you got that, props to you. So a few things did happen around the league since the last episode, and one of them is Winnipeg signed a very good key piece. They kind of needed to since they lost Ehlers to us. So go Canes for getting at Ehlers. But they signed Gabriel Velarde to a 6-year, $7.5 million contract. And you know what? I think that's a good contract for both the player and the team. The player's gotten around 50, 60 points, I believe, this past season with Winnipeg. He's a young guy. He's a big guy. I believe he's like 6'3", 200 something pounds. And he does play a big physical type of power forward game. So I think that's a good contract. Winnipeg really, I mean, they need all the players they can get, especially on the forward side of things, since that huge loss to Ehlers. We'll see how Winnipeg does in a response to that. So obviously that was one transaction in response to that, but maybe there's more. Maybe. The next piece of news here is Lucas Dostal. He signs a 5-year, $6.5 million contract with Anaheim. And to me, this contract showed that Lucas Dostal is the guy for Anaheim. He is the starting goalie because we know Anaheim, they traded John Gibson to Detroit, and that was a sign of already that Dostal was going to be the starting goalie, but you just look at that contract itself, it pretty much solidifies the fact Dostal is that starting goalie. We'll see how that goalie tandem does in Anaheim with both Dostal and Mrazek that they got. So I think Anaheim's going to be a pretty good team. I really do. They have tons of young, good players. And another thing, too, that has happened recently is there was a trade, and Toronto, they got Dakota Joshua from Anaheim in exchange for a 2028 fourth round pick. And this is a guy that I think is a pretty good, probably bottom six, top nine, maybe type of player. And we know Toronto, much like Winnipeg, suffered a big loss when Marner signed to Vegas. So both Winnipeg and Toronto are kind of in that same boat of losing big, impactful players. Listen, if I was a fan of those teams, I'd be like, you know what? You're not going to replace those players, but you got to do what you can to kind of almost make up for it. Almost. Because, again, you're not going to exactly make up for it, especially with the cap that both Winnipeg and Toronto probably had, and also the players' willingness to have a change of scenery. I think that was more for the sake of Marner than it was for Ehlers. So that's kind of it around the league, and nothing really happened with the Hurricanes since our last episode. One thing happened. It's the fact that the Hurricanes announced promotions within the organization. And when I saw that, I was just like, okay, good for them. Good for the people that got promoted. Obviously, when you get promoted, you get more money. Can't argue with that at all. So good for the people within the organization that got promoted. But other than that, nothing big really happened with the Hurricanes. And I can tell you what's interesting is that the NHL this offseason obviously was trying to go for a different type of approach compared to previous off seasons. I think they kind of wanted trades to kind of spur up throughout several points in the summer this season, that approach instead of all trades happening at once. And I'm just going to say something here. This might be I think it's true. Honestly, it's not really a hot take, but ever since we got Ehlers, like I would think the market has opened up. And I talked a little bit about this with Brandon in the last episode, but it just hasn't. Obviously, you have that trade, but that's not really a big type of trade. Like I would have expected Washington probably already to have made a trade, considering they were the one. They were the front runner along with us of getting Ehlers, and they lost out on Ehlers. So it's just interesting with the way the trade market has kind of been. Nothing's really happening, even since the Ehlers signings. So I find that very, very interesting. I just wanted to point that out. But that's kind of it around the news. So not a lot of news. And I will admit, with the way this offseason's going, it it really is something, especially from a podcasting perspective. Okay, so I am going to take this on a month by month basis. And just to look at some stats from the previous season, the Hurricanes, their home record last season was 31-9-1. And obviously, when I saw that overall stat of us playing at home, I consider that almost mastery of playing at home, because if you get over 30 wins, that is very, very good. And the Hurricanes accomplished that. And that kind of showed last season, one, I think how good they are. I think it showed how good us fans can be by pumping up the noise in the arena. So good for us fans that go to those games. And it shows, and I think because of that, it shows that the other teams, when they come to our arena, they're probably maybe a bit intimidated. And on the road last season, the Hurricanes had a 16-21-4 record. Now, this to me was a little bit surprising, and it's not like I saw this stat yesterday and be like, "Oh my gosh." I kind of knew our road record wasn't as good as the season was progressing the past season. But what's interesting is the season before last season is the Hurricanes on the road were really, really good. They had a 25, 13, and 3 road record. So there's definitely a dip. Now, I also said at the same time coming into last season that the Hurricanes have kind of downgraded because of all the players that left. I don't expect them to go on an impressive run. Well, they still did, and they mainly did that with their performance at home, but the road record did slide quite a bit into a losing type of record. So, obviously, heading into the season, expectations have changed, especially with the players that the Hurricanes have added, like Keandre Miller, like Ehlers, and even added depth with Mike Riley on defense, and you have a couple goaltending depth with the Russian goalie Mitakov, I believe, from the KHL, and you have Caden Primo coming in. So depth and a couple of big signings and trades. So month by month thing. So a big thing here, I think this season is you look at the stats from last season on home and on the road. Well, at home, I hope nothing changes because at home they were nearly perfect last season. The road record that needs to get better. Again, expectations are different heading into the season, and I expect this team to at least be around or at, I would say probably be around or at 500 while still being dominant at home. So in the month of October, the Hurricanes have 10 games. On the road, they have 6, and at home, they have 4. And what's nice to me about this month is that the first 2 games are home games before they go on that dreaded NC State Fair road trip. And us fans know about that road trip very, very well. That's the reason why they go out on the road because of the NC State Fair and all that type of stuff. And you have that 6-game road trip, which us Canes fans, I'm sure we're a little bit irritated, especially with the start times, but nothing we can do on that. So, obviously, what stands out the most is that 6-game road trip. And I would say that my expectation on that 6-game road trip is to win at least, because there are 6 games, win at least 3 of them. Because again, aim for around 500 and be dominant at home. If you can do that, you're going to make the playoffs. And so I would say probably my expectation overall at home is so win 3 games on the road. And at home, again, I'm not expecting this team to be perfect. It is an 82 game season, soon to be 84. You're going to have losses. I'm not expecting them to go 82-0-0. So my expectation, I would say probably win overall this month, home and away games, win 6 games, 3 on the road. And if you can win 3 out of 4 home games in October, I would say that's a pretty successful October. And another thing too that I think is very important is right out the gate at the very, very start of the season, which we know is in October. I think it is very, very important to have those good starts. Now, with that being said, I do realize we have lots of new players coming in. It's going to take probably some time. Canes might be a little bit rusty, but regardless, where they need to aim in terms of their performance is to be very, very good and have that good start. I think a good start is very, very important. And in the month of November, I'll expand on this in the month of November here. There's 15 games. And as you can probably tell if you saw the schedule, the reason why a couple of these months, or a few of these months, I should probably say, in the schedule are so overloaded with games is because you have the Olympics coming up in February. So in the month of November, you have 7 road games and 8 home games. So it's a pretty mixed bag type of month. It's not really dominated by road games, not dominated by home games. But to me, what's nice about this month is that you have a somewhat of a 3 game homestand. Again, I'll probably expand on that once we get into December. And if I had to say something bad, probably a 4 game road trip. And nothing really sticks out to me just because they're all blended together with the road and home games. And my expectation, I would say for this month, it's going to be like this for a lot of months as I'm going to be covering is 9 wins. So 3 on the road. If you do 3 and 4 on the road, again, I'm fine with that. If you can be around 500, I think that really is the key. And then if you can win, I would say probably 6 of the 8 games at home, I think that is a very successful month. So 9 wins. And another thing too, part of why of the Hurricanes need to have, I think, this good start is that start is usually from October to around Thanksgiving. And if you haven't heard, historically, by Thanksgiving Day, 77% of teams in playoff spots make the playoffs. So it is very important. And I think that stat even emphasizes just how important it is to be in some sort of a playoff spot by Thanksgiving. You don't want to bet on your team. You just don't. It's not a good idea. Don't bet. Go out, get those wins. So November, again, big month, lots of games, but they're pretty blended together with road and home games. And it's a lot like that with December. Now, what's interesting about December and the end of it's basically the end of November. If you guys notice, end of November, early December, you have a 7 game homestand. And when I looked at this homestand, I was like, this is a winnable homestand. So I think that this is a great opportunity for the Hurricanes to muster a lot of points because at some point with it being 82 games, there are going to be some duds. There just are. That's just reality. I wish there weren't, but there are. So that 7 game homestand, I think, is going to be key to rack up a lot of points so that you can kind of help yourself when you have those type of struggles, probably heading into maybe January, maybe a little bit of February. There's only 5 games in February. But again, that's very, very important. And a couple things that stand out, obviously, in that month of December, I would say, is the homestand and the states of Florida schedule. Because in December, and I am going to pull this up here, we have a back to back with both Florida and Tampa on Friday and Saturday. And when I saw that, I was like, oh boy, that ain't going to be fun. Now, travel, I mean, that's kind of fine because they're both within the same state. But regardless, we know those are very, very tough teams. And to even put more salt into the wound, we're coming back home facing Florida again. So those 3 games, again, Friday night on the 19th at Florida, 20th at Tampa, and then the 23rd. So the Canes do get a bit of a 2-day break. By the 23rd, they come back home and they play the Panthers again. And we know the Panthers have Carolina's number. Yes, we were able to win a game, but it was basically a gentleman's sweep, whether I like it or not. And those games are going to be very, very tough. So hopefully I'm hoping the Hurricanes can win at least one of those games against Florida, just because I think it would help the morale and all that type of stuff with the Hurricanes. So that's very important. But that's pretty much it for the month of December. And for the month of January, this is a month that is dominated by home games. So, another way to rack up points, again, Hurricanes have historically been very, very dominant at home. This is a month that the Hurricanes should take advantage of. And in this month, you have 9 home games and 6 road games. So, a 15 games in the total month of January. And to me, what's nice about this month, again, you're being at home. And I think because of that, I don't think nothing bad is really, really happening. I know some people probably will say, well, you can play too many games at home in the way that it could affect the Hurricanes from not playing well. And while I have heard some of those arguments, listen, the Hurricanes, they play very, very well at home. They need to win those. Now, I'd probably be a little bit more concerned if they're on let's say, and I doubt it's going to happen, and it's not really going to happen. If the Hurricanes were on like a 14-game homestand, then I'd probably be a little bit concerned and be like, okay, they probably need to get out and travel a bit. Because there is, I mean, listen, as much as I love probably these home games and road trips and how good we are at home, I do think there's some truth to the fact as well that there are times where the players just need to go out and travel, or there are times where the players need to come back home. So always try to keep that in mind as well. But January, I would say probably my expectation it's the same as December and November. If you can win 9 games, I think that'd be fantastic. 3 on the road, so 6 games, and then if you can win 6 at home, a clear majority of those wins at home, I think you have a pretty successful January. Again, as you notice, I'm not expecting perfection. I really am not. I'm not expecting us to win all 41 games at home. That does not happen in this league. So if they can win around 9 games, I'd be very, very happy with that. In the month of February, there's only 5 games, and it's because of the Olympics. You have 4 home games and 1 road game. And oh, I forgot to mention this about the month of January. And I know there's still the Utah team, but I cannot wait to play against the Utah Mammoth because it will be the first time of us playing the team being known as the Mammoth, not as the Utah Hockey Club. So I think that's pretty cool too. To me, that really stood out because that's a game I'm really looking forward to seeing those very, very cool jerseys. If you haven't seen the Utah Mammoth jerseys, I advise you to go look them up. If you don't like it, that's fine. We can agree to disagree. But man, I think those Utah Mammoth jerseys just look fire. So the month of February, going back to that, 4 home games, 1 road game. And to me, what is nice about this month is you look at the few games we're playing, it is they're mostly at home. So I like that. To me, what's bad, and some fans might not like me for saying this, is the 2 week break. And the reason why I am saying that is because you look at especially last season when the Hurricanes were on a break this long, 2 games coming out of that break was probably one of the most horrible games I have seen this Hurricanes team play. That Toronto and Montreal game, no bueno. They were not good. So I am going to say that this 2 week break probably might be bad for the Hurricanes just because they're usually rusty in the first couple of games coming off of a big long break. So I'm hoping I am wrong on that. Really, really am. But because of the few games this February. Again, I'm not trying to lessen the importance of it, but it's kind of hard for me to gauge how many wins I want just because there are very few games. But I would say probably the expectation, if you can win around 500, I am completely fine. So if they can win 2 to 3 games out of those five, again, I'm completely fine. Not saying that they're less important. It's just with the 5 games only in the month of February, it's kind of hard to gauge on how many wins I kind of want, and also the reality that the Hurricanes have known to be very, very rusty coming out of break. So the next month is the month of March. And this might be a bit of a stretch, but to me, what's nice about this month is that the Hurricanes play a team that is known to be rebuilding, even though they do have Crosby and Malkin, 3 times. Now, I would say when it comes to the month of March, out of all the months that the Hurricanes are playing, the month of March is going to be brutal. It is going to be very, very hard because the amount of road games, it is a road month. They have 10 games on the road to play in the month of March and only 5 games at home. So, what I said earlier, if you guys remember about us trying to bank in some points, especially on that 7-game homestand, and the amount of home games you get in January, if those could pay off if you have a bit of a mediocre March. But regardless of the game, regardless of the circumstance, I expect this Hurricanes team to get probably around 9 wins. If they can win 5 out of the 10 road games and win the majority, like, because they only have 5 home games, I think they can probably win at least 4 of those home games. Again, not expecting perfection, but 9 wins, I'd be very, very happy. Heck, honestly, just by looking at the schedule, if we got probably 7 or 8, I wouldn't mind that, but I'm not going to probably be satisfied because, again, this is a team that has gotten better since last season in terms of what you see on paper. So we'll see how the month of March goes. Again, gotta start racking up those points when you can, like January and late November, early December, because that can really come in handy with a month like this. And the very last month I am going to talk about is the month of April. And there's only 8 games, and we know this. When the playoffs come, they usually come mid-April, sometime mid to late April. So the early part of April is still the regular season. You have 3 home games, five road games. So a kind of another month of mostly being on the road than at home. And I would say what's nice about this month is the first 4 games are at home. I would say probably what's bad, and to me, what is frustrating because it kind of ended the season like it did last season, is that the last 4 games of the season are on the road for the Hurricanes. Now, it wasn't that much if you look at last season's schedule, but they did end the season being on the road. I think the last 2 games of last season were on the road. So I would probably say at that point, though, Hurricanes are probably resting players because hopefully they're in a playoff position. They're resting players and letting some of the guys from Chicago playing in the lineup. That's usually what happens if the Hurricanes do make the playoffs, and they know they're making the playoffs. And I really, really hope they do. And in fact, they probably should. If the Hurricanes do not make the playoffs this season, this will be an utter disappointment. It just would. But looking at this team, it is hard for me to be like, this team's missing the playoffs. So, but again, I have been shocked before. So my expectation is 5 wins. If you can get probably around half of the games on the road a win, I think that's an accomplishment. And I think if you can win probably one or two games on at home, considering you only have three, I'd probably be fine with that as well. But I mean, you add up to pretty. If you add up all these wins that I expect throughout this whole season, they should get between probably 45 to 50 wins. Now, they've gotten above 50 wins before in previous seasons, but regardless, it's going to be a fun season. I've always thought when the schedule hits, I've always thought this is the roadmap to trying to get into the playoffs. That's what this is. Now, obviously, every team plays in the same type of structure as the other teams do. It's obviously 3 or 4 within the division. Uh, and I think the opposite division within the same conference is probably a few games and then at least twice in the opposite conference. So while I do believe they play the same structure of games, I also believe that there is a strength of schedule. So the Hurricanes will see how this schedule goes for them. And I really do hope it's a very good, positive season for the Hurricanes. I know there's probably going to be some injuries. I hope none of them become too severe because we have had pretty severe injuries in the past. I'm sure you guys probably remember Svetch getting hurt. And yeah, so it's going to be very interesting. And that was me analyzing the Hurricane schedule. So hopefully you enjoy this episode, and I will see you guys Friday.